Hello everybody, what's going on? Chris here, and welcome back to another pre-race simulation type video-esque thing. So this weekend, they are going to be racing in Imola, or the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix this weekend. And I'm very excited because I love Imola. It's a very great track, and it's a lot of fun, and every single time we go there, apparently it rains, which is quite interesting, and we always have a good race. But guys, this weekend, they actually are having a sprint race weekend in Imola, so that means there's going to be qualifying tomorrow, which will be Friday. The day after, on Saturday, is the sprint race to qualify for the race, and then Sunday is the race. Sadly, there is no sprint race option that can lead into an actual race in the game. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm just going to be simulating qualifying and then the race for this video. The way I simulate these videos is that I just simulate qualifying. Basically, I just put it on like ×4 speed or whatever it is, go into the race, and then do a 50% race, and then get the final result from that just by running in the back of the grid, basically. So guys, with that being said, if you guys are new here, go make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends. With that being said, everybody, enjoy the Imola simulation. This video is sponsored by Manscaped. April is National Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, and I've partnered with Manscaped to help spread the word. Visit manscaped.com/TCS to learn more about simple self-checks for cancer prevention and share to help save a life. Get 20% off with code TCSCF at manscaped.com and make a donation to the @TC Society at checkout to save a life. Once again, thank you Manscaped for sponsoring this video. After a great qualifying lap, Lewis Hamilton is apparently going to be qualifying on pole in Imola, followed by Max Verstappen in P2, with a beautiful lap from Fernando Alonso to put him into P3. George Russell puts up that car into P4. Looks like those upgrades have worked for Mercedes, followed by Charles Leclair, a little bit disappointing, in P5. P6 is going to be Sergio Perez, which is still quite respectable, followed by Pierre Gasly in P7, which honestly could very well happen this race weekend, which is quite interesting. P8, this would be a real shock if this actually happened, but Sebastian Vettel ended up qualifying in P8, so who knows? It's possible, but highly doubt it. P9 and P10 are wrapped up by both McLaren drivers, Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo. Pretty good qualifying for both of them. You know, I believe this is the first time this year they both got in the top 10, unless they did in Australia. I don't really remember. P11, a very disappointing qualifying from Carlos Sainz, comes off the back of his very disappointing Australian Grand Prix, and he's going to be starting in P11. A very good qualifying for Alexander Albon as he puts the car actually into P12, which is quite respectable to say the least. I'm very impressed with what he did right there. P13 was Mick Schumacher, and it looks like the Haas has actually fallen off quite a bit right here. Who knows, maybe they can get back going. You know, they're racing in Imola. They're an American team, but they're quite Italian based, so who knows, maybe the Italian connections will help Haas this weekend. Speaking of Italian connections, Valtteri Bottas qualifies in P14. Looks like the Alfa Romeo isn't the best in the slow speed quarters in Imola, followed by Lance Stroll in P15. So maybe Seb's actual performances could possibly happen because Lance Stroll's actually doing a pretty good job. He's up into P15. That gets him out of Q2 or Q3 as well, or Q1 as well. P16 is Zhou Guanyu. He didn't really have a great qualifying lap. He just lacked overall speed, but then again, the Alfa Romeo wasn't looking like the fastest cars. Bottas was 14th, but still Zhou 16th, not that bad. P17, quite a bit disappointing for Yuki Tsunoda, as Gasly, I believe, was 7th. So having Yuki Tsunoda 10 spots behind him in 17th, not very good. P18 is Esteban Ocon, and this is even more disappointing as we saw Fernando Alonso in the top 3. And it's looking like that qualifying form that Alonso had in Australia is going to come over all the way to Imola here. So we got Ocon in 18th. Nicholas Latifi in P19, no surprise there. I mean, he's probably the slowest driver on the grid right now. And in P20, it is Kevin Magnussen. Sadly, he's probably going to be P20 all the time because he has to use Mazepin's AI. Sadly, it really sucks. I wish I could change that. But Kevin Magnussen is going to be starting in dead last. Alright guys, now it's time to get into the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix.
You join us in Imola as we prepare for what will undoubtedly be a magnificent day of racing. It's time, of course, for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. 3.1 miles of track here at Imola, featuring 19 turns, 9 to the right and 10 to the left. Remember that Imola differs from most other Formula One circuits as it's driven anti-clockwise. Let's hope no one forgets that today. The exit from turn 18 will probably be the setup for many of today's overtakes, leading as it does into the longest straight of the circuit and its only DRS zone. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here today. But I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
But from the moment qualifying's over, you start to feel the adrenaline in your body build up and the buzz in your stomach as you anticipate the rundown into turn 1. It's all a bit like going into battle, and the unknown situation makes you nervous. Those pre-race nerves are a good thing. The day you don't have them means that you don't care anymore. And of course, you have to make sure that all the procedures are second nature to you so that they're not taking up too much of your capacity.
And winning the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in Imola is going to be Lewis Hamilton, as he takes what would be his first win on the season so far, and I believe his second podium. Great race for Lewis. He absolutely dominated, had a massive lead as everybody else behind him ran into some sort of incident pretty much. P2 was Pierre Gasly, as he gets his first and AlphaTauri's first podium of the season. He did a great job staying out of trouble and keeping his nose clean, and ended up finishing P2. P3 is once again Fernando Alonso, as he also gets his team's and his own first podium of the year, and I believe Fernando Alonso's first podium since Qatar last year. So great job, Fernando. Good job for Pierre, Lewis, and himself to get onto the podium there. P4 was George Russell. He had a pretty good race. I believe he had damage early on, had to box early. He was leading at one point, but then once he had to box, he lost a couple positions, and he ended up finishing P4. Sebastian Vettel, while the car doesn't have much pace, he stayed clean all race, ended up coming in P5 for Aston Martin. So very good job for Sebastian Vettel there, and I'm sure the team will love those 10 points that he's gotten for them. P6 and P7 go to both McLaren drivers. I believe they both had a little bit of wing damage early on. They stayed out of trouble like Sebastian Vettel did, ended up coming P6 and P7. So great job for Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo. That is big points for the McLaren car, because they were expected to be quite slow this weekend with their low speed cornering and all that. So good job for Lando and Daniel. Very good performance for them. P8, actually a great job for Valtteri Bottas, as I believe he went up a couple spots, I think like 5 or 6 to finish in P8. He did a good job, once again capitalized on others' mistakes, and I mean, he just did a great job. Nothing else to say about Bottas. Now, one of the drivers that had an issue or had a mistake was Max Verstappen, as he had wing damage battling Lewis Hamilton, I believe in the early laps of this Grand Prix. So he had to box, I believe on like lap 3 or 4, and that just lost him so much track position and so much time. He ended up recovering to P9, but still not as, I mean, considering he could have won this race, it's not very impressive. Speaking of impressive, Nicholas Latifi finishes in P10 and grabs Williams' second point of the season. We saw Albon get points in Australia last week, but if this happens and Nicholas Latifi gets points, I will be so happy, and I don't know what to say about him. He kept his nose clean just like Sebastian Vettel and just didn't get any damage all race. Sadly, that can only get him to P10, but still P10 for Latifi is very impressive. P11 goes to Mick Schumacher. He had damage early on, fell back a little bit in the race, and he ended up finishing in P11. Really nothing much else to say. Speaking of damage, P12 and P13 are going to be Charles Leclair and Sergio Perez. They were battling for a good 15 laps until both of them hit each other, and they both had front wing damage and had to box, lost a whole bunch of track position near the end of the race there, and they finished P12 and P13. A little bit disappointing, but there's really nothing you can do. So 13th is Perez and P12 is Charles Leclerc. P14 is Yuki Tsunoda. He really just was slow. I don't know what happened. It didn't look like he had wing damage. I was looking through the replay of the race. Didn't look like he had damage. Maybe he had an issue that wasn't mentioned in the actual race, but he finished P14, just not very good for him. P15 was Carlos Sainz. He also had wing damage. I don't know what it was from. I couldn't find it in the replays, but Carlos Sainz had wing damage. He ended up boxing in like lap 4 or 5, sort of like what Verstappen did, and he finished P15. P16 was Lance Stroll. He was just really slow and had a little bit of wing damage early on, had the box. Most of these guys had wing damage. The cars aren't very good at racing at Imola. If you're side by side in turn 1, you're basically going to come out with wing damage every time, but Lance Stroll finishes P16. Esteban Ocon finishes P17. Just like Lance Stroll, they had pretty much the exact same race. They were the ones who hit each other. I believe they probably got wing damage. I don't know, but Ocon P17. P18 was Alex Albon. He ended up DNFing. He had an accident. So that sucks for him. P19, Zhou Guanyu also DNF'd with a mechanical issue. Quite unfortunate for him. He was actually running in the top 10 before his mechanical failure. And finishing in P20, the first retirement of the race was Kevin Magnussen, as he also had a mechanical failure and finished in dead last. So guys, that is going to wrap it up for this Imola simulation video. If you guys do enjoy and you like seeing the results from this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends. Also guys, join the Discord, link is in the description. Also want to give another thanks to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. Go check out all their links, they're all in the description down below. And with that being said, everybody, thank you so much for watching and see you guys next time. Goodbye.